Hey guys, welcome to today's YouTube video, and today I'm going to be taking you over the Vienna game slash the Vienna Gambit. I'm going to go over two of the main variations of the Vienna Gambit, which is the accepted and then the main line, and then I'm also going to show you the copycat variation, and that's what I've seen the most against the Vienna, so you kind of have to fill in the gaps beyond that. But first is the Vienna Gambit accepted, since it's the most common, weirdly enough, at the lower level. But essentially, yeah, this is the Vienna game. After e4, e5, and knight to c3, this is the Vienna game. The most common response is generally going to be knight f6, but I'll show you a response after knight c6. But after knight to f6, you're going to play f4. It's called the Vienna Gambit. And then if black takes, you just have an immediate advantage of about +1. And the reason for that is because you can play e5, attacking the knight, and the knight cannot go anywhere forward. So now it is forced to go back onto its original square. And you just play knight f6, and the top move here is d6, but I think knight to c6 is going to be more common. But essentially you just play d4, get a big center, get really good development. The main move here is d takes, e5. You're supposed to play bishop to b5 check to induce this pawn move, and then play back to bishop c4. And it's a bit of a computer idea, but if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. You don't want the knight going there to be able to attack the pawn, so it does make a lot of sense. And then, yeah, after this, they're generally going to play knight f6, and then you just take the pawn, and you just have a ginormous center. You're going to be able to castle very fast, attack this pawn. You can already take the pawn with your bishop next move if they don't defend it with like g5, which is a terrible move in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, you're attacking this pawn. You have a bunch more development. I mean, you have 3 pieces against 1. They're going to lose the pawn that they're up right now. You're going to be able to castle before them. You have pressure around their king right now. So like, for example, if they just ignore what your knight's doing, you can already just take here, and you have a fork against the queen and the rook. Of course, they have queen a7 check, but you play queen e2, and then queen takes e2, and then king takes c2, and then they can't really defend this that well because this is forked, but they can make a different bishop move. But you get the idea. Yeah, I think, yeah, I had a line against knight c6 here instead of c6 after you give bishop b5 check, so let me just iterate this so it's easier to understand. Yeah, after they take the pawn, you give a check. Instead of c6, they play knight to c6. You're going to be playing queen e2, very simply to attack this pawn, since the knight is pinned. After bishop g4, which is the top move, you take this pawn on f4 because it is pinned to the king, so you don't have to worry about losing a piece. And after queen takes d4, because this is pinned to your queen, you want to do bishop takes e5 since this is still pinned. Bishop takes f3, and you attack with the g pawn. And after queen to h4, you play bishop back, discovered check, queen e7, and then you just long castle to prevent black from castling long. And that's a lot to remember, but all of it like kind of makes some practical sense. So I think it's relatively not too hard to memorize because it is some very simple tactical concepts. Just block with the bishop, and discover check, and then long castle to prevent black from castling long and getting their king safe. And the knight is protecting your queen, and so is the bishop. So for example, if queen takes, you want to take with the bishop because it is easier to move the bishop just back than move the knight back. Because generally, bishops can move like around the board faster than knights, so that's why I want to take with the bishop. And again, black cannot castle, and they still have their entire king side undeveloped. So yeah, this is a very good variation for white. Just remember, after they take the pawn, just push. That's the main thing you have to remember. Push your pawn. Push your pawn. It forces them to go back and develop your knight. As long as you play reasonably beyond this point, you will have an advantage. So Don't fuss too much about memorizing all of that, but just remember, push the pawn, make this knight go back to its starting square, develop your pieces actively, get castled, and you have a good position. So next, I'm going to go over the copycat variation. For example, what do they do? Or what do you do if they play knight to c6? Well, the most popular variation, or first of all, what you're supposed to do here is just play bishop c4. But the most popular variation here is to copy, and this is called a copycat variation. And the best move here, especially practically, is queen to g4. Just be very wary, be very wary. If they play d5, your queen is hanging. If they play d5, your queen is hanging. But luckily it doesn't work right here, because since you just take on g7 and you win the rook. Very simple. Shouldn't be that hard to remember. Just don't hang your queen, please. Just remember that if they move the d-pawn, your queen is hanging. If they move the d-pawn, your queen is hanging. Just remember that, please, guys, please. After queen to f6, which is actually a mistake, but it's actually the most popular because it does come with like a scary looking position. After queen takes f2, you're like almost mated, but your king moves here and it's actually like really safe. And the only move that doesn't like lose instantly for white is king to f8. Another one is bishop to f8 to protect this pawn. Oh, oops, guess we'll see that yet. But yeah, bishop f8, king f8, or knight to b4, which I don't think I've actually ever seen knight b4 in one of my games. I don't even see the point of it. Because here, don't you just, you can like take here? Yeah, you can take there, you can take on g7. I don't really understand that move, computer. Yeah, essentially, after king to f8 to protect the g-pawn, which sometimes they'll just miss, you're going to be going to trap their queen next, because you'll notice all of these squares are covered. And this square is covered by your bishop, by the way. It's like, aha, it's mate, they hung their queen. I've had that happen before, it happens. But after they protect their g-pawn, you're going to be going for the queen. After knight to h3, you're taking away the last square. So all these squares are covered now. The only square that the queen can go to now that doesn't hang it is queen to d4. But you can actually trap the queen after d3, and now you are threatening to go c3, just fully trapping the queen. You'll notice that all these squares are covered. And it can't really move sideways, and this pawn is just cementing it into that square. The only move is like bishop e7 or what? Knight f6? Knight f6? Don't you just lose? Ah, no. So knight takes. Ah, I see, I see. But it's +7 here, so I think this is a good enough advantage for me to really delve into that deep. But essentially the idea after queen to d4 is you're trapping the queen if black just ignores it, because you're threatening to c3. So yeah, just keep in mind you are threatening to trap the queen with c3. Yeah, I mean, it's just a very strong variation against the copycat variation. I always used to play this way when people would play this way against my Vienna game. But now I have to show you the main line of the Vienna Gambit, or else I'd be a bad teacher. So this is like the same moves as earlier, but the main move here, or the main line here, I should say, since it's not the main move. The main line here and the best line here is d5, kind of like a counter gambit, but not really. This is like the only line that equalizes for black in the Vienna Gambit. So you just want to take on e5 with your f-pawn, and knight takes e4 is the only move for obvious reasons, since you're starting to take the knight. And if it moves back, for example, then you kind of just have a Vienna Gambit accepted with d5, which is better. But yeah, I recommend queen f6. I think it's called the max range variation. I'm not really sure. It doesn't show me on the classroom feature, so I don't know. I think it's called the max range variation. Max Ling. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But anyways, after queen to f3, it's very simple. You're protecting your knight. You're threatening to win the pawn. If you count correctly, there is two attackers and one defender. So knight c6 is counterattacking this pawn, essentially. You're supposed to play bishop f5, bishop b5, my bad, to pin the knight. And after knight takes, you want to take with your d pawn. It seems counterintuitive, but if you think about it, you're opening up your bishop to its most active squares here. Cannot draw the arrows. Most active squares here is very simple, very simple. And the only thing that equalizes for black here is queen to h4. And it's the computer just saying go to endgame. You want to play g3. They're going to give this check, takes, and then yeah. You can take here. You can take on c6. You can play knight e2. Just remember, after knight e2, bishop d7, don't castle. Don't castle here. If anything, you're going to be castling queenside. Don't castle kingside here. It gives you a disadvantage. The bishop can come and cement your king in if you don't want to run to the f-file. So don't castle kingside here. If anything, castle queenside. Yeah, after bishop takes, which seems a little weird. You want to play bishop e3 to stop this pawn from pushing forward and creating a discovered attack on your rook. And after g6 to open the bishop up to get to e5, you want to castle queenside. And this is simply to get your king to safety, and also to get your rook on the open file and prevent black from castling queenside as well. After bishop d7, you want to play bishop f4 simply to defend this pawn. And I know this opens up the discovered attack, but you can just move the rook. Like, you can literally just move the rook, and this pawn is even weaker now, so no big deal. Again, I believe there was a point here that I wanted to go over. Yeah, like here, why can't you just take and win the pawn? You can. It's equal. You can play this way if you want. But the computer doesn't back it that way, even though this is like slightly better for white, which is obvious. White has more space. Although the queen is a little bit out in the middle, but essentially here you just want to do the same kind of thing. Develop your pieces to active squares, get castled, play d4 to support your pawn in the center. Yeah, just castle. You can castle kingside here, you can castle queenside as well. It doesn't matter that much in this variation. Yeah, guys, just remember, fill in the gaps. I can't teach you everything in one video. There's going to be like things that I missed or things that I just didn't go over at all. But yeah, good luck using the Vienna. It's a very strong weapon. I've played it over the board a few times. It is a relatively strong opening. It definitely is solid, and the computer agrees with most of the lines. But yeah, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow.